Hello. Um, I welcome. I hope this works. I'm not quite sure. I think Hello. Um, I hope you can hear me. Um, this is actually the first time for me live streaming. So excuse the weird setup and things like that. I'm getting that. Oh, hello. I'm getting that figured out right now. But yeah, so hey, we are here because we wanna do some nice. We want to do some UTM virtual machine setup, um, and so I figured let's open UTM right here. I kind of figured that. Oh, what did I do? Okay, cool. So I kind of figured that the easiest thing to do right now. Excuse me. Having some. Hello. Can I? Nice. Okay. I'm reordering the chat so I can actually see it on my second monitor. Nice. Okay, so I kind of figured we start with the easiest one of them, which in UTM is macOS. It's a macOS app. They have very nice support, which is, a change from the usual virtual machine software, right? Where setting up a macOS VM is always terribly difficult and super annoying. At least, sort of in the most, like in most of I cannot talk today. In most of the apps and virtual machine software that I tried, setting up macOS has been really difficult. So I kind of want to show how cool that is with UTM. And then, like, you can maybe say what you think about that. But the next I would like to tackle is Windows. And if we have time, because I'm really stripped for time today. I have a couple meetings coming up in about an hour and a half. So excuse that. I will be back next week with more time, but very excited to be streaming. So if we have the time, then let's do some Ubuntu, right? Why not? Do some Linux so we have all of our big three operating systems covered. Cool. So let's, before we start off, let's head to the UTM page. And so what UTM is, it's essentially, if you're familiar with virtual machine software, essentially it's sort of a GUI wrapper for QEMU. And because like QEMU, very powerful, incredible software, but it's rather verbose, right? It's a command line tool, not so great. And what UTM allows you to do is just have a nice UI for it, right? I don't want to remember all the commands, and probably you don't either. I just want to hit a button and have a VM running, right? And it, like, UTM also sort of patched QEMU, as far as I'm aware, with some stuff, so it actually runs very fast on M1 Macs, which is the one that I'm on right now. It's actually the M2 Mac, very fresh arrival. But yeah, so the way you get started, and we just had this open. We click on create virtual machine, and then you have sort of the option to choose between virtualize and emulate. Virtualize means that you can only do sort of the processor architecture of your machine, which in my case is Arch64, right? The Apple Silicon. And that limits you a bit because, like, especially in operating systems, ARM64, if you're more familiar with that name for it, is not that widespread yet. So if you have like a niche operating system that only runs on like Intel hardware, you probably need to choose emulate instead. But we go with virtualize. And so it already prompts you with like 3 sort of, the main options. And for macOS, this is really easy. We just click macOS, and then this right now here, we sort of have the option to use a profile like in this file format, which sort of is how do I describe this? Basically, the macOS version. So for every version, that is sort of the profile for it, and you can go and like Google for it. There are a couple websites that help with sort of finding historical versions. It doesn't go further back in time than Big Sur, as far as I'm aware, but sort of since Big Sur, you can find sort of for each macOS version you can find a file. So this right here allows you to also go back in time in macOS versions to sort of check out, maybe my app is broken on, Big Sur, but I'm on Ventura, right? So how do I check that out? And virtual machines is quite good for that. You don't need to find a friend, friend who has a very old Mac that they didn't update in a while. And so, but I don't really want to bother with that. It also takes quite a while to download as is. So let's just, sorry, I'm rushing through this. Okay, so this right here, we can set the memory and CPU cores. Just leave that as the default. It's fine unless you sort of know what you're doing, right? Know that you need something different. Same for storage. I have quite a bunch of storage. So 64 gigabytes, that's fine. If you are stripped for space, right? As a Mac user, I guess we all know the feeling of having only 256 gigabytes of SSD space. That's certainly what I had before this one, right? So you might want to go lower on this. I think sort of that's the virtual hard drive, and it sort of scales with it. You can sort of and also do garbage collection on the drives. I can maybe show you that in a bit as well. But again, just we leave that as is. This is sort of to review all the things we set. Go to save, and I hope this takes a reasonable amount of time. As you can see, it started downloading macOS, which this will fetch the installer for macOS. So a bit counterintuitive, counterintuitive to what you might think. This is not the whole operating system. So once macOS downloads, you start it the first time, it goes through and then installs all the files. Just so you're aware. Yeah. So this is a bit of a limitation with UTM, and I'm not sure if there are plans on addressing that. I don't think so, just because like sort of the tech that macOS that UTM is built on is very much based on Apple Silicon. But yeah, UTM is only running on Apple Silicon Macs right now. I might, if I have some time next week, because like virtual machines is great, and I'm constantly trying out different stuff. Like the other day, and maybe we will sort of get to that next week if I have the time and you are interested in it. I was setting up OpenBSD. There's like virtual machines and the tech behind it, and sort of the virtualization software you use. It is immensely fascinating to me, and there's a whole bunch to explore. And there are definitely options that work on Intel x86 and on Windows, so yeah. While this is downloading, let's talk a bit about Windows, right? this will just happily download in the background, and we can already sort of start and sort of get Windows going, because Windows is a bit manual. And if we go ahead and we go to Windows, we have a handy link, which, sorry, that was a bit quick, which says Windows install guide, right? And I would encourage you read this guide, follow it to the letter. It is a bit tricky to build Windows without this guide and to get it to run. Yeah, so you have the option to choose between Windows 10 and Windows 11. I find that, we can maybe open this as well, that Windows 11 works much better, because Windows 11 is the, sort of has, like, there's Windows 10 support for ARM64, right? That, like, is a thing. It's not that great. If you want sort of anything that remotely resembles performance and like a workable thing, then go with Windows 11. And still then, like, this is something with Windows you just have to keep in mind. Like, excuse me, ARM support for Windows isn't that great yet. And if, like, they are working on it, right? But if you are sort of forced, as I am right now, right, or any user, if you're using UTM, you're forced to use the ARM build as well. Then just keep that in mind. Windows on ARM, not that solid yet. So yeah, let's head over, close this. Let's head over to this one, which, oh shit, sorry. Open it in a new tab. So this is basically like a zip file of all the files that you need to build the Windows installer ISO. And this is a bit of a sort of a setup wizard. You don't really need to click anything else than next, because there's only one language supported. Both editions are fine. We can choose that at install time. Also ISO, that's what we want. Don't check anything else. And we download it. Cool. Isn't Windows the one not supporting ARM? Yeah. Have I said something to the contrary? Because then I misspoke. Definitely, Windows isn't supporting ARM. Well, it does, but sort of the support for ARM in Windows is very recent. If I said the opposite, then my bad. Sorry. Yeah. Cool. So that is downloaded. So, oh no. Okay, no. ARM is right. ARM is cool. I like the architecture. No. It's Windows not supporting ARM. Sorry. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying. Cool. So what we want to do is we open a terminal. We go to downloads, and then okay, cool. Oh, you know what? Let's use the Finder to unzip. Let me drag that here. Cool. So we just unzip that thing we just downloaded, and you can see there are a few scripts in here. If, like, we're on Mac OS, so we want to run the Mac OS script, but if you're on Linux or Windows for whatever reason, you can use those. And let's get the the terminal back up. And no, oh, all right, cool. So let's go into the folder here. let's make this a bit larger and clear up the screen. Cool. All right. So first thing, we need to give execution permissions to that, so we can run it. And then, oh, that is not what I want. This is what I want. Then we run the script. Important note though, and this is something that if you haven't built Windows before, which probably haven't, go to the bottom of this page where it says cannot run the script, and if you cannot run the script because it errors out, then go to this section. And important is that we have the prerequisites installed for this, and that is like the first thing is Homebrew, which you might have installed, right? That is like used in a whole bunch of places, and then you I guess let's run. No, well, I cannot type as well. Let's run this quickly to show you what it does. That basically installs. Oh, what is happening? Okay, that wasn't the case when I. Nice, cool. You you are treated to some interesting. Okay, cool. License agreements, nice. Let's run this command and have it install. Nice. And then we can install all the dependencies that we need, which are quite a few. I ran this command before, so it's telling me, I have all of them already. For you, if you're running this the first time, this will take quite a bit longer, but yeah, cool. So with the dependencies installed, let's go back to this. Let's maybe move this over here. Why not? So we can read everything. Cool. Let's run that script. And this will sort of first download a whole bunch of utilities and then fetch all the parts that make up our installer. And sort of as the last step, it will create the ISO file that we actually, then give to UTM to install Windows. And yeah, while that is going, that shouldn't take too long. The last time I did it took like 7 minutes or something. But while that is going, let's check back with. Oh, man. So, yeah, Homebrew. I mean, honestly, you cannot escape Homebrew, right? Like if you're doing any kind of development on Mac, it's like a fact. I mean, you can avoid it as much as you want, but there's like certain tools, at least sort of in my experience, that you just have to go with Homebrew. That's just how it is. I honestly, and I mean, I don't know what your experience or opinions on Homebrew are, but I'm fine with it, honestly. It does what it's supposed to. So, yeah. This is a bit of waiting now. I don't really use Linux outside of VMs, and so I don't know. And yeah, cool. Just watching things happening. It's very exciting, isn't it? I honestly like this is super interesting, right? I have like a few installs going, and before the stream when I tested sort of my setup and things, um, I was running Windows and Mac OS in a virtual machine, and like the Mac didn't break out in sweat like whatsoever, right? Mac, the Apple Silicon magic, incredible. Um, yeah, I'm so yeah. Um, so to finish that story, like the MacBook didn't even break into sweat, right? No issue whatsoever. But my internet, like Jesus, the I couldn't even. So I think it was sort of like a weird thing with my Wi-Fi at that time as well. Yeah, that macOS timer is not encouraging, but once Windows is finished downloading, then I think it should pick up speed instead of getting slower. Sorry, what are you up to, please? Hello. Don't. Oh, Jesus. Okay, whatever. Cool. Yeah, no. So the issue was my internet is like, you know, if you if you're from Germany, which, you know, given the Tauri community, you might, or you know friends, people from Germany, then you probably also know that the internet here is not, it's not good, definitely not good. And so the yeah, the issue is definitely my my internet speed, which is annoying. Yeah, the use case for virtual machines, definitely. So I, as you might know, I work on Tauri, the open source project, and Tauri is again, hey, let's do something more interesting, right? Tauri.app. What Tauri is, it's basically it's a toolkit, Rust, a library that lets you build cross-platform apps using web technology. And do we have a screenshot somewhere? Like a cool one? Yeah, a cool, very slow loading one. Nice. Okay, cool. Anyway, so that is Tauri. And as sort of one of the people that works on Tauri and implements features, right, and fixes bugs, like I get a whole, or we as an open source project, right, we get a whole bunch of reports and whatnot from people on various different platforms. And like I don't have 3 to 4 different machines lying around, each running like Windows, Mac OS, Linux, and OpenBSD or whatever, right? So having a virtual machine that you can just open and start up and check something in, it's gold, really. And the same goes for if you are developing apps, right? Chances are you work on anything that's cross-platform, right? Then sure, sort of, and I do that as well, run your tests on operating, like on the sort of GitHub Actions, right? And then run it on a test matrix where it runs on macOS, it runs on Linux and on Windows. That's already very good, but especially for like graphical stuff, you just have to test it on a like a sort of a real operating system, right? You cannot, you just have to test it for real. And that's also where virtual machines are really good, because I can just open my app when I work on demo apps or whatever, in my case, or you, if you're working on like your production app, right? Just open it in a virtual machine, do a like quick check. Does the feature that I'm implementing look good on Ubuntu? Does it look good on KDE, right? So there are things that you can do in sort of automated testing, right? And where you can check things in GitHub Actions. But a lot of the stuff you just have to check yourself. And that's really why I love virtual machines. Oh. No, it's the Wi-Fi. I'm sorry. Wi-Fi. Is that a word that German people struggle with? Maybe. I don't know. Cool. So something happened. Looks like we are in the last stages of creating the installer. That's cool. Yeah. Sort of as a quick question, I cannot see how many people are watching, but if you're willing to share while we wait, if you are building apps or something like that, would be very interested to hear that. And I know Fabian and Simon, don't tell me what you do. For those who aren't familiar, Fabian and Simon are both part of the working group, the Tauri working group. Yes. Yeah. So the question is, if I'm gonna show how Tauri works under the hood, and definitely, absolutely, this is basically the reason why I wanted to start live streaming. Just because you can do videos and you can write blog posts, right? But having this back and forth and just like getting low, like down into the code base, that really like works really well on a live stream. And yeah, definitely, stay tuned for that. Maybe even next week. A lot of ams. Sorry. Yeah. Next week. I am interested. Do you want to? Okay, then no. Tell me. What are you doing? Tell me. Tell me what you are doing right now. And yeah, the Windows installer finished. Woo, nice, cool. Let's clear the screen. Okay, we're looking for this one. This is the file we just created, and this is the one that we hook into UTM now. Let's see, the macOS one has picked up steam again. That's good. Okay, cool. So, hooking up Windows. Sharing cat pics. That's cool. Sounds like you're being very productive. I approve. I approve very much. Okay, so what we want to do is now, okay, so let's start that process again. To hook up sort of the ISO we just created, we click on create a new virtual machine, click again on virtualize. This time we click on Windows. And we select the ISO that we just created with that script. And what the documentation says, if we open that again, the documentation says make sure that this one is unchecked. It will not work without. It will not work while that is checked. So definitely uncheck that. Also, to cross-reference with the documentation, install drivers and spice tools. We have that checked. Unchecking this, and that's a bit sort of weird with Windows and QEMU, is that Windows requires, with like, you can do some trickery, but normally Windows requires internet connection during sort of the start, especially sort of the installer we just created. And unless you check that box, which installs sort of the necessary drivers so that Windows works with the QEMU virtual like network interface, then you will not have internet during installation, and you get stuck, which is annoying. So definitely leave that checked. And again, we just leave this at the defaults that UTM sort of recommends. This is kind of interesting. A shared directory, you can always hook that up later and like after the fact. But that's sort of a way that you can share files from your host machine with the virtual machine. And this is quite helpful. What I usually tend to do, and this only really works on macOS, if the host is a macOS machine and the guest is also macOS, right? What I do usually, because VS Code, and we will hopefully get to that, VS Code doesn't really run inside of virtual machines, and there's like a weird graphical bug, and like it doesn't render correctly at all. So what I do usually is I create a shared folder with the guest operating system, and I put the project that I'm working on into that shared folder, and then I open that project inside of the shared folder with the VS Code on my host, which is also faster, right? Like it's more performant, nicer to work with. And that automatically reflects the changes in the guest. And then I run it from the guest, right? This, like, if that makes sense. And so this is a useful tool. Okay, that looks correct. Nice. So we can actually just run this now as is. But before we do that, let me sort of show you one important feature of UTM, which is the settings for each virtual machine. So a neat part about UTM being built on top of QEMU is that you have a nice sort of GUI, right? And I don't need to worry about all the UTM commands and sort of the lower level things that are involved with like starting that virtual machine, right? But if I need to, I absolutely can. And so if we head into the settings, right, you can see there's a whole bunch of things here. The first one is like the architecture, right? The system, sort of what memory we have, how many CPU cores. And then this one is the incredibly powerful one, which lets me see all the UTM settings, right? This is like the command you would run UTM with on the command line. And you can add new command line arguments and stuff like that. This is like the place where you can really drop down to the QEMU command line level and do whatever you need to. And then we have sort of things you would expect, right? USB support, how your keyboard is hooked up to the virtual machine, how it appears to the guest operating system. And then this one is the menu that you would then go into to hook up a shared folder afterwards. And yeah, configuring a display, a network card, and sort of a sound card, that's the devices we have. Usually you don't need to touch this in any way. Usually you don't. And that's sort of interesting. With OpenBSD, I had to touch this. But here, like, just so you know, here you can add more sort of devices, right? If I want to simulate like a 2-monitor setup, I can add a second display, for example. But usually you don't really need to. This is cool if you like, if you want to simulate like a multi-monitor setup, right? I had for example, an issue with a Tauri plugin called Positioner, which basically helps you to position your Tauri windows in sort of, we call it well-known positions, which basically means instead of having to know X and Y coordinates, you can basically say, oh, I want my window to be in the, I think that's upper left for you. No, upper right. Oh, no. Nah, whatever. You get what I mean. Right? I can say upper left or lower left or whatever. And that plugin will basically do the X and Y calculations for you. And we still have an issue where that doesn't work really across multiple monitors. And sort of this setup with multiple displays would be neat to test that, right? I could just hook up displays. I could, and then in the operating system, just position them at weird sort of positions and test if that plugin works. Very handy. I don't need to go out and buy a whole bunch of screens and hook them up to my laptop in order to test. And yeah, network, you want that sound also uncontroversial. And here's sort of the drives that are configured. As you can see, it created a USB drive, a removable USB drive with our ISO in it. And that's just how you would install Windows on a real machine, right? You would put the ISO onto a USB stick, put that USB stick into the machine, boot the machine, and it would run the installer from that USB stick. And then we have the virtual hard drive. This is empty right now. And we have the Spice Guest Tools also as a removable USB drive. And during installation, it will sort of fetch the drivers from that. Also interesting to note, if you are going to be using UTM, something that I learned very recently is that you can reorder this. This is a list you can drag items around, and the order of this list means the boot order, right? So if you are familiar with that, in machines, right, you have a boot order where it will sort of look at one hard drive first. If the BIOS cannot find a bootloader on that drive, it will sort of go to the next one and then go to the next one from there. And this is like sort of the way you configure a boot order. So let's have the ISO at the top here. That's what we want. Save, and macOS is already almost done. Yeah, cool. So let's run. Boom. Let's drop into Windows. And this will take some time. What happened? This is not what I want. Stop. Okay. Some live debugging. Did I mess up the boot order? No. Okay. Weird. So it said press any key to boot. Oh, hello Daniel. Nice. Welcome. It prompted me to press any key to boot, and I, like the first time around, I didn't, and it didn't boot. But now I pressed the key as it instructed me to, and it booted, which is cool. I didn't have that before. I didn't press anything when I tried, and it still worked. It's weird, but that's Windows. What do you expect? Can you see this? I might make this a bit larger. The resolution isn't great. I don't know if you can tell, but it's a bit pixelated. Yeah, cool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick. Let's press G and go to German for the time and currency format. And oh, hello Jacob, nice. And then also go to German for the keyboard layout, because I cannot. This is an easy mistake to not do if you have like a non sort of American keyboard layout. Classic mistake, and then you are confused why you cannot enter your password right. Cool. So I don't have a product key, so I click that. Let's leave it at that. You can also choose Windows 11 Pro. This will just take longer. So let's choose, and you know, there's a difference, of course, but for the purposes of this live stream now, this would just take longer. Yeah, the drive. Cool. And this will now install Windows on that virtual hard drive. And this will again take some time. Let's check in at what macOS is doing. 4 minutes. That's cool. That's nice. Hopefully we can start this up as well. And this is one of the like very neat parts about virtual machines compared to physical machines, or even like GitHub Actions or virtualized software, which I guess if you're sort of running, help me out. There's this Mac in the cloud service, right? If you use a service like that, I guess it's a similar situation. But virtual machines are cool because I can copy paste stuff from my host into the VM, right? These are only just windows. I can reorder them like how I want to. It's just all around a much, much, much better experience than using physical machines, or something that I have done a lot as well in the past, before I was on a Mac, is that I would just like rely on GitHub Actions to do things for me, which certainly works, but you know, it takes forever. And this is just having quick feedback, being able to, you know, hop across virtual machines as you need to. That is really, really cool. Okay, so Windows is restarting. Let's speed this up. And it will do that, like, at least from my experience, it will do that a couple times now. This is not the only time it will need to reboot. Setup is starting. That's promising. Really, you know, you do this VM setup. Oh, that's not good. Do I need to... I wasn't paying attention. Do I need to remove... Okay, so just a bit of more UTM help. Yeah, 3 reboots. That might be realistic. Yeah. Quick UTM tutorial. You have this menu bar, which this will shut down the VM, which makes sense. This will reset to sort of the last save point, and then here I can configure sort of serial devices. Here I can configure the drives I've connected, and here I can have a quick sort of shortcut to set up a shared folder. So let's eject the installer. Yeah, let's eject that. Let's quit the VM and let's restart. Immediately it's different. What is happening? Okay, resize issue. Cool. So we are dropping into Windows. Yeah, nice. Cool. So this is this should be going. Because the macOS installation finished as well, let's kick that off. And let's for a minute move this out of the way. macOS is interesting because like UTM has a bunch of special handling for macOS, and you might have figured, you know, back when I sort of at the beginning of the stream when I told you that that UTM, installing macOS on UTM is very easy. That's because they have special handling for macOS, and you will notice, because it doesn't immediately drop into any sort of operating system or something like that. Instead, it tells you installation 0%, which UTM will now install macOS on this VM. And I don't know if you could hear that, but Windows is ready for us. Nice. No, I don't. Thanks. Thanks for asking. Yes.
set it.
Ooh, please stop talking to me. And again, let's. No, I don't. I think this is the macOS virtual machine I just detected. Let's go ahead and find the German keyboard layout. There it is. No. And honestly, this is not virtual machine specific anymore right now, right? This is just the Windows installer. And you can see here to the left, the macOS installation is chugging along as well. We can sort of now race them against one another, right? I have a feeling though that macOS will be faster. Yeah, it looks like that. That's kind of fun. Again, a bit of waiting. What does my time look like? Day. Okay, so I have about half an hour left, which should suit us just fine. We will not get into Linux, sadly, but we can leave that for next week. But I want to show you how to share files. That's something I want to do as well. Cool. Like one nice aspect about virtual machines as well is that I really do like unboxing new stuff, right? I love when I get a new piece of tech and I unbox it and I set it up for the first time. And virtual machines basically give you the cool unboxing experience, but without having to buy anything. So what I usually do for these VMs, because I don't want to remember any passwords, and those are mostly just like throwaway anyway, right? There's nothing important on them. Oh, hello macOS. Let's minimize you for a second. So what I usually do. Oh yeah. Okay. About the ISO for Windows. Yeah, we had to build that. And the instructions I mentioned, follow them to the letter. Do what they say, and this works. Importantly, go to troubleshooting. I don't know why they don't mention that sort of as a prerequisite, maybe. But you need to run, like, you have, like, on macOS, you need Homebrew, and you need to run those commands before you can run the script that builds the ISO. Yeah, but that process applies to you're right. I built Windows 11, but that process applies to Windows 10 as well. It's the same thing. So definitely follow the docs. Aside from that sort of small complaint about the prerequisites, the steps that you need to follow and the steps outlined in I think there's sort of also README, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so the steps outlined in here, they should get you up and running. Yeah, we built the ISO ourselves. Cool. So yeah, I was gonna say these VMs to me, those are like throwaway. That's a hard word for German. Jesus, throwaway. Throw away virtual machines, right? I don't care about them. No important data on them. I delete them whenever I feel like it, or whenever I need to clean up space. Nothing important on them. Yeah, so the warning, yes, this says Windows 11. Sorry, I'm getting this sidetracked, but yeah, Windows 11 2020 H2 requires Windows 10 to build, but like Windows 11 21 H2 you can run just fine. And I haven't gotten this far yet, but I was planning, because I saw that warning as well, of course. I was planning on building the 22H2 installer ISO on that virtual machine as well. And if you're interested, we can do that in another stream as well. Sort of bootstrap our way to the latest.
Drücke die Eingabetaste, um Deutsch als Standardsprache zu verwenden.
No help. Okay. Windows. No, I think that was macOS. I think macOS is done as well. Anyway, so I usually just name the user and give it a password. That's also very simple. It's not really important, really. Also, security questions. I couldn't care less for a virtual machine, really. You should, of course, common sense. You shouldn't do that for a real machine. Or if you're storing secret stuff or important stuff on your virtual machine. But no worries. Welcome to the stream, by the way. Welcome. Great to have you. Yeah, so Windows 11, it's installing, and it's, as you would expect from Windows, there's not one installer, there's not two installers, I think it's three. Good old Windows. So while that is installing, let's do macOS, and it picked German for whatever reason. My host is English. I don't get it. Anyway.
To use English as the main language, press the return key.
Okay. But we will use Germany as the region. Okay, so that did like one thing where I don't have to configure the keyboard layout manually, which is cool. English, yes, nice. I don't have accessibility issues. Thanks for letting me know about that. Also, this is just the regular setup, right? But we want to skip as much of that Apple ID kind of jazz as possible. If you are planning on installing, let's say, sort of, for example, you have an app that you then also distribute to the App Store and you want to check that out in a virtual machine for whatever reason, then of course you would need to sign into iCloud. Again, user, a very simple password. Just so it's a user with a password, right? No location services. No. But let's set a time zone. I think I can click on the map, right? Paris, Italy. Good enough. Let's not share analytics. Let's not set up screen time. No Siri, thanks. That should be it. Oh, yeah. I like the auto theme. I know dark theme is a thing people really like, and maybe for stream, let's choose the dark theme. I have set the dark theme on my host as well, just because for you dark theme lovers, that I want to be nice. So let's use the dark theme, and boom, See that? We're in macOS. Wow. So yeah, this is macOS. All right. And we can actually, so you can now go and customize this to whatever you need. But we will have a look at what the Windows VM is up. Ooh, oh, oh, what the Windows VM is up to. It's still installing. Okay, cool. So let's have a look at sharing a folder. So what, like macOS for whatever, and I don't like. I'm sorry, I don't know the reasoning for this. I haven't done research in that direction yet. But macOS does not support the shared folder thing. I guess it's a limitation, not with QEMU, of course, or UTM, but with macOS itself. But what we do instead is we set up. I cannot look. Okay, nice. No, this is not. I have a camera now. It's like a camera for streaming. Oh, yeah, see you, Horacio. I have a camera for streaming, but that just arrived like 10 minutes before I wanted to start the stream. So I'm using my MacBook camera. So I cannot see the settings. There we go. Cool. So, sorry. What I want to do is, what I want to do is I want to set up a shared folder. And for that, we go into, let's just search for it. I can never remember where it is, but the setting is called sharing. Is it? No, I think it's hidden somewhere. Sharing. And there, look for file sharing. And what this does, enabling this, will sort of create the public folder and share it over the network. I can show it to you. It's the camera that I got. It's not, so it's probably not going to be the final camera, but it is the Insta360 one. That's the brand, and this small little piece of kit, that is the camera, which it has a cool bunch of features. It does 4K, which is nice. It doesn't get in the way, because right now in my room I'm very much limited in regards to space. So having a small camera and a small setup is kind of nice. Blue Yeti, what do you mean by that? Sorry, let's get back on track. The file sharing. Yeah, so what that created was the public folder. And this is a bit tricky to get to. Let's go into Finder settings. Sidebar. And for whatever reason, it doesn't show up in sort of the list of things we can enable for the sidebar. So we have to locate it. And that's user, public. And what I do is I just drag it into the sidebar from here. Cool. So now we have a public folder, which this is empty right now, right? There's nothing in it. Oh, okay. No, I don't have a Blue Yeti. I have I have a bunch of mics. So in regards to microphones, I'm very much well set up, because that's one of the things I really like doing. Is I'm very much into music. Yeah, no, but what I have is like for right now, what I'm using is a Rode. What is it? Rode NT1. Like if you're picturing a podcasting mic, that is the one. Um, I have a bunch of others, but those aren't that great for voice, so I'm using this one for now. Um, where was I? Oh yeah, okay. So now the public folder is shared, and what we can do is we can open. This is a bit confusing, right? This is a finder on my host. This is a finder window in the virtual machine. It's Inception. But yeah, so what we can do is we now go to network, and because the folder is shared over my local network, um, yeah, yeah. It's if you have sort of seen podcasts, like recordings, video recordings of podcasts, that's the mic they all use, or a lot of them use. Um, yeah, so because we shared that over the network, it now shows up. Um, and we are not connected. What is that? Yes, I want to connect. Please. Can I connect as a guest as well? Oh. Okay, weird. I usually don't have to log in. That's interesting. Maybe I did. I toggled some weird setting. Oh yeah. Okay. So I would like to do that, but logging in as the user probably is the more secure option. Um, if you want to sort of have read and write without having to log in, and you can save that login, of course, right? I can have it connect on startup and things, but then just go to read and write. Set that to read and write for everyone, so you can actually write to the folder, which is what you want, right? Um, but yeah, so now we have this shared folder open on our host, and if you see, I can now create a project here and have that appear in the host, in the guest virtual machine. And that's usually what I do with Rust projects, for example. I move them in, excuse me, I move them into this, I copy them into here, and then I run them from the guest, which, it works. It's not it's not super ergonomic and a super nice user experience, but it definitely works, and it's good enough for my setup. And I wish that you could use VS Code in the guest as well, but you cannot. Maybe if you joined late, then I mentioned that right at the start, that VS Code has like a weird rendering bug inside of virtual machines where it doesn't render correctly. That is sort of the reason why I'm setting up the shared folder thing, where I can now share my Rust project and open it in VS Code or whatever editor I'm using at the time. Open that from my host and have it appear in the guest so I can run it from there. But yeah, so honestly, this is as far as Mac OS setup goes. Personal preference, what I also like to do. Interesting. Yeah, okay, so VS Code Remote, that's a great idea to try. I have not tried that. Might be something for a stream, why not? And you say that VS Code renders correctly in Ubuntu on VMware. That's interesting. That's also, yeah, I might dig into that a little more. as I said, I don't really know why it's not rendering. And it seems kind of weird. Maybe it's a sort of a bug with the way that because like I can configure which sort of virtual device the screen appears at. Maybe it's an issue with that. I will do some digging. Yeah, you're right. VS Code remote should also be a thing. That might actually be a good sort of idea. Yeah, what I usually do is I show all FileName extensions. I get that macOS is kind of smart about the way it shows file extensions, right? It will show them for most of the coding related files and hide them for stuff where where it knows it's, for example, it's a video. But I leave this on. I like it more. It's a peace of mind and also like for security, right? Because file extensions, that's one of the, the famous Excel spreadsheet that's in reality an executable, right? So that, I it's personal preference, and there are a whole bunch of other things I would now do. For example, like get out of my way. This is all stuff. No, I clicked it. This is all stuff that I don't need and I don't want. So I would, get rid of a whole bunch of this. But this is as far as macOS setup goes. So we can shut it down. Bye-bye. Yeah, that's macOS. And, ooh, you see this? Windows. So, let's quickly, before I need to go, talk through the rest of the setup for Windows. And that is honestly also quite simple. The most important part is this prompt right here. And this opens up automatically right after boot the first time around. And this is sort of the setup for the Spice Gas tools. And that installs a whole bunch of drivers for the virtual devices, as well as it allows for file sharing and clipboard sharing across to Windows, right? From the host to Windows. So yeah, let's install this. And while that is going, one thing that I also always do, and I don't really understand, I must admit, I do want to reboot manually. Thanks. Oh. Okay, this seems frozen. Why are you frozen, Windows? Classic Windows issue. Nice. Interesting. Let's maybe wait for a second. Does it come back? It doesn't appear to be coming back, which is a shame. Okay, maybe when I did the install, I clicked too much around. Okay, let's kill this. Bye-bye. Let's do a quick reboot. I hope. Okay, nice. I was gonna say I hope this didn't destroy our Windows setup, because the Windows do be doing that sometime, right? Where if you just force it to shut down, it will not work. Yeah. Okay. No, I know what I did. Help. Oh, no, it didn't. That's good. Okay. I thought I clicked on shutdown again, but no, I didn't. Okay, back on track. one thing that I always do is I increase the screen resolution. And that's something you might need to have to do with Linux as well, is that you need to set a screen resolution, because it will detect like something weird, right? It will not correctly detect the screen resolution that you want to. Keep changes. And honestly, it, aside from resizing the window, oh, what happened? Why are you acting weird? Windows, please. Play nice. Oh, okay. Let's pop this into full screen mode. And now we might even increase this further. What is the next? Is this one right? Nope. Shit. I can. It's also no. Yeah. Let's. No, it's all right. Just chill, Windows, please. Cool. Yeah. So just play around with the screen, the resolution, to find something that works for your screen. And then, importantly, run this installer, which will set up the drivers and things for your virtual machine, for the virtual devices, basically. Without it, you will not have internet, for example, and a whole bunch of other things will also not work correctly. Let's reboot the virtual machine, and then I would call it a day, honestly, because I need to go. But thanks so much for being here. This was my first live stream, believe it or not. My first time. Yeah. Let's have this is a nice place to end. Windows on macOS, right? And honestly, it doesn't even perform that badly, right? The performance. Yeah, thanks. No, don't allow. Thanks, Edge, for raining in my. Okay. Yeah, well, so the performance isn't even that bad. Like, see that? It's pretty alright, given that we're running Windows inside of a virtual machine on a macOS host, right? And on top of that, it's also Windows on ARM. So, yeah. Also, if you want to, try the new Bing using AI, and you only have a Mac, then virtual machines are the tool for the job. So you can get Edge on Windows and try the new AI features. I think. I haven't tried, but I guess that would work. Anyway, so thanks for being here. My first live stream. Do expect more next week. And I don't know who requested that, but I will definitely be talking more about Tauri, going into the depths of the code base, and also implement some features live. I'm sort of one thing that I'm planning to do next week is implement tracing and logging for Tauri, so using the tracing and the log crate, and just implement that across the Tauri code base, so that you can understand what is going on inside of Tauri, right? Debug performance issues, because that is rather difficult right now, or debug issues in general, logging and tracing is gold for that. So I will be implementing that, and I will be implementing that live with you, hopefully. So yeah, thanks so much for joining, for hanging around, and see ya.